یه خلاصه از would you please tell us a summary of the past and what will we hear in this session? Thank you very much. We're going to start the recording right.
Yeah, maybe it's part of the talk. So maybe we started. I will go a brief review. But if you
Okay.
want more, I can do more.
Thank you very much.
So بذارید من اسلاید رو پیدا کنم.
Okay. We have Dr. Qudusi, Farhad Qudusi. He'll talk about early Shiism in Iran. And this is the fourth session that he's covering all the supplies or all the ideas, how the ideas spread throughout Iran. Last time he was talked about just before Safavid dynasty, I think so. And it was some question about how Yemenis, like why Yemenis were different than like the Arabian Peninsula. Some like Dr. Atai was like might be because the Yemenis were part of Iran. That was some idea about that, but it was talking about it. But let's see what the Dr. Qudusi himself tell us in brief. Okay, go ahead. Thank you very much.
أعوذ بالله من الشیطان الرجیم بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم الذين آمنوا وهاجروا وجاهدوا في سبيل الله بأموالهم وأنفسهم أعظم درجة عند الله وأولئك هم الفائزون. Those who believe and have left their homes and striving with their wealth and their lives in God's way are of much greater worth in God's sight. There are they who are triumphant. Expressing my salams and regards. I'm very happy to the dear friends of Masjid Irshad. I am very happy that I find another opportunity to be with you guys. As you know, I have started these meetings with this verse because I felt this is a good example of, as I said before, and every time kind of I said it, how Shia Islam spread in Iran, and the same way maybe Islam or Shiism spread in the United States. So you always can consider, if you do it the sake of God, you can consider yourself an instances, or at least hopefully we are one of the instances of this verse. Just to help for chronology, I had this table last time. I put it again because it's good because we are now more in 3rd and 4th century, but it's good the categorization, to have in mind. So the 3rd century is 9 to 12 Imam Baybat Sobra starts, and then 4th century Baybat Sobra and Baybat Kobra. I think the two dates which is more important to remember is 260 after Hijrah, start of the minor occultation of Baybat Sobra, and 329. So look to those two dates, which is the boundary of the Baybat Sobra and the start of Baybat Kobra. The picture which I had in the first slide is the tomb of the Sheikh Saduq. It has been being renovated in the last few years. Maybe it's a more recent picture. Actually, I intended to talk more about Sheikh Saduq. Today, I think, except one word, we don't talk about him. But still, this is related to the Ray and Shiism and Ray, and then we'll see the effect. We'll continue or expand from there. Today, our discussion will be on the Buyids mostly. I think we'll take all the time. Inshallah, the next lecture, I think we'll discuss more about the ulama in the Ray, Qum, and Baghdad. So kind of culminating all these stories together, bring them all back together. So what we saw first was the centrality of Kufa in Iraq for Shia Islam and everywhere, including Iran. And then today we'll see gradually, we see the start of transition from Kufa to Baghdad. Baghdad gets the spotlight. We will see that later on. But then we saw the first and the most important center for Imami Shiism especially was Qom. And because of the immigration of the Arab Ash'ari tribe, and the Qom from their migration, really late 1st century till now, always was Shia Imami, solidly Shia Imami. Then we discussed maybe one lecture about Tabaristan, or the coastal area of Caspian, Daylaman, Gilan, which many Alawite, Shi, Zaydi governments were established over there. The difference was that part of that region, especially Daylaman and Gilan, were not conquered by the Islamic army. So the majority of was not under jurisdiction of caliphate. And the majority of the people, as we discussed, generally were Zoroastrian. Then we move to the Ray, which we'll see gradually Ray uh, gets more importance from even home in one sense, because of its geographic, strategic, economic status. We discussed about the importance of Ray, but we saw, interestingly, Ray first century was a bastion of pro-Umayyad sentiment, very known, a city of which was very pro-Umayyads. Even we have hadiths from Imams, which is strongly negative regarding Ray, but this, we said, is about the Ray of that time, not later on. But by the establishment of Abbasids and the whole change, gradually you see uh, people are appearing in Ray. We see among the Sahabas of Imam, those narrated Hadith Imam, people with their last name was Razi, or have at least part of the name is Razi. From seventh Imam onwards, even sixth Imam, I think was, all that have Razi, and at least 25 people from Ray have narrated Hadith. At least their name in the four canonical or not canonical, the main major collection, Shia Hadith collection, we find the name of 25 narrator of Hadith, which part of the name is Ray or Razi. And then there could be more, but these are at least. Again, it's good to have the map in mind. So we saw the axis, which previously we saw was the axis Qom, Ray, and then kind of we go to the northern part, that line to Amul or Ruyan actually is really the heart of those Zaidi areas. Although most of the time those the government maybe was in Tabaristan, so have this in mind. But actually, you see today most of the focus is somewhere else. I mean, it's actually maybe more to the south, but have this map in mind is good. So again, to a little bit, I went through that, but again, more about the Ray, a little bit more detailed about the Ray. So we saw there wasn't much Shiism over there, then few Shias appeared over there. But the big change, which is close to the end of the age of Imama, is 250 after Hijrah, which is 10 years before the start of the Ghaybat Soghra. I mean, the dates is a little bit not clear. Maybe even is order of, maybe it's a little bit earlier than this, because some people think by the order of 10th Imam, you can take that out of the parentheses. But Abdul Azim Hassani moved to Ray and then kind of escaped and hide in the Persian quarter, Mawali quarter. Then he buried over there, and then his burial was the shrine was at very, because there are many hadiths recommend to go visit his shrine, and overall that made people coming more and more to Ray. That's one major change. From the time of besides him, there was one of the sons of Imam Musa Kazim was buried over there. Actually, he went over there to pray near that burial site, fasting during the day and vigiling during the night and hiding from the authorities. And then Ray was on the crossroads of commercial and all the roads going east-west of the Iranian plateau. So much of the army was moving, going to the east, fighting Khorasan, Mawar and upper areas. So Ray was a prosperous city and the trade routes. So besides that, there were Alawi Shiis coming to the Ray, maybe from Tabaristan. Occasionally, Ray was in the control of those Zaidi governments in Tabaristan. So they, people capture it and lose it, again capturing it. So it was. But the first there were some, we know the Shia hadiths. There are some administrators in Ray, which were by heart Shi'i. We had that hadith last lecture. It was in Bahar, which the heart Shi'i helped the Shia over there, but they weren't openly Shia. But the first ruler, which we started discussing at the end of last lecture, which is openly Shia, was a person called Madrani, which most probably is from maybe Kurdish or Kermanshah area. There was some discussion where he is from, but most probably he's from there. Get the hold of Ray around 275 after Hijrah. So about 25 years after Shah Abdul Azim al-Hassani and after the start of the Ghaybat al-Soghra. So now we got the first openly ruler, Shi ruler of Ray. He said initially when he started to come to Iran to do the wars in the region of maybe more Jabal, Zagros Mountains, stuff like that. He wasn't a Shi'i, but he already loved Ahlul Bayt. He was under the service of a Turkish ruler commander. I just wrote the name Tutkin Satkin. In itself, we don't go to detail, but it's good to know, and we kind of mentioned it last time. Gradually, you got dynasties start to appear, which are Persianate and independent dynasties, and I'm going to review that in a couple of slides later on too, in Iranian plateau, especially in the Khorasan, but also after the Iranians, Turkic rulers start to get gaining prominence gradually. In the first part of the Abbasid dynasty is the time the Persian families are getting much powerful in the Abbasid dynasty, their viziers, their rulers like Barmakis or many other ones. But then gradually you see the Turkish commanders, military rulers get the power. And then this tension between this should know Turkish commanders, rulers are usually Sunni, very hardline Sunni. So we see that maybe has an effect at the other stage or end stage of this early period, which I'm not going to discuss it at least now in this series of lectures, but having that in mind is very important. Okay. We discussed about the Tashai Madrani. I'm not going to go through that, but there are some semi-miraculous, at least from, it seems some contact happened to him from Nahi and Muqaddas. And then they told him send the money that he was where he has to send it. This may help him to become solidly Shia, but I'm not going to go through that. But the fact is interesting is this. There was a debate. Many scholars debate when he became Shia, because Khomeini, Khomeini, the writer of Kafi, the most important Shia collection, was contemporary with him. I mean, so leave the same period, which maybe his youth when he was living, because Khomeini passed away in Baghdad in 329 at the end of Ghaybat al-Sughra, so he must be there at the time of his rulership, because remember the Madrani got it 275. So this discussion was interesting. One example, because I want to mention more, Ahmad ibn Khalid al-Barghi is one of the big scholars of the 3rd century. Much of the Shia books, unfortunately, from the 2nd century, 1st century are lost. Maybe other writers have narrated them. We have a few from 3rd century. The situation of Shia Imami is worse than other groups. Worse than even the Khawarij, Zaydis, all of them. That's a big story in itself, why this happened. We can see maybe a couple of examples of it, why maybe it happened this lecture or next lecture. But one of the books has been extant is Ahmad Khalid al-Barghi's book, Mahasin al-Barghi, is called after his name. But it seems he went to Madrani, talked with Madrani, and then there was an old man, we need some help. Khalid Barghi becomes intermediary, and then went to, so he must know Madrani has some Shia tendencies. This is the time Madrani was under the service of that Turkish ruler, it seems. And then Madrani helped him and helped even Khalid, Muhammad Khalid Barghi needed something for himself because some tax issue, they have confiscated his land, so helped him. And the idea in the hadith is why Madrani helped them is because he himself was Shi'i, the old man was Shi'i, and Ahmad and Muhammad Khalid al-Barghi, which is the big scholar living in Iran, was Shi'i. So generally, this is the first ruler in Ray, was a Shi'i, and helped the cause Imami Shi'i. Imami Shi'ism spread. One of the things which was interesting, and that's indirect, is this. Many Sunni scholars in Ray, and the Ray become, by this time, the end of the 3rd century, beginning of the 4th century, a very important city for scholarship. And it's very open cosmopolitan place, because you have Zaydis over there, you have Mu'tazilis over there, you have Sunnis over there, you have Shia Imamis over there. And then, you heard the Zakaria Razi, the famous chemist or famous scholars. There are many, you get many scientists, many scholars over there, which are had the last name Zaydi. So it's like a intellectual hub over there. And then this Abi Hatem Razi is very important. So these guys, they want to get a connection, get some reward. They start to, and then they know Madrani likes this, and he said it himself. So they're Sunni mainly, but they start to write books of virtues of Ahlul Bayt. So you see, the dynamic is there too. Those Sunni scholars, which are now in the time of Abbasi, more toward Bani Hashim, at least that in Osmani environment of Umayyad has gone away. now start to propagate the virtues of Ahlul Bayt too, which helps. In long run will help. So I just now, because our goal is to go to the Buyids. Buyids are important, and I will see that inshallah what the importance is. That's I think will be the main topic today. But again, I briefly review these slides, which we did it. That look, occasionally from the beginning of the 3rd century, the control of central government in Baghdad, Abbasid government, becomes weakened, especially in the farther east Khorasan area, because much of the wars were happening over there. The conquest going to the Central Asian republics of former Soviet Union, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, deep in. The army was going deep in over there, and partially in maybe still part of Afghanistan or India, stuff like that. So big legions of army were there. And then gradually those guys get power, and then gradually they get independence. You know, especially the civil war between Ma'mun and Amin, the two brothers, weakened the Abbasid government a lot. And then Ma'mun was in Marv, which was again another garrison city in northeast of Iran. Now it's not in Iran, and then like Kufa, Marv was a garrison city like Kufa. So you will see that those regions, because of the power, the military power, far away from the center of Baghdad, so they start to claim independence. And then we saw that with the first one was many of them were Persian, or some maybe Turkic, which the Turkic ones will later on be important, you know, but they're mainly Sunni. Tahirian, Safarian, Samanian with the 3 Iranian ones, Persian-speaking ones, but then you have Ghaznavian and Seljukian, which are Turkic, which are very important, more important for what we say today. And then we saw last time there was Zaydi dynasties or some Shia dynasties and so on. The importance as politics relation to religion, we said it last time. The importance of these rulers with Shiite tendencies in the conversion of the people to Shia Islam is big. You know, that's politics and religion are not that separated from each other. And that could be a topic. We partially discussed it last time. I'm not going to go through that, but these are slides from last time. But the difference is this: the Sunni principalities recognize the authority of Caliph in Baghdad, at least nominally, and then they act as Caliph agents, collect the taxes for him, receive legitimacy from him to the eyes of the Sunni populace. That was the deal. So because according to Sunnis, the rulers should be from Quraysh, or now even Bani Hashim after Abbasids. So this legitimacy, this dynamic was there. And the Abbasid Caliph, who was weak, was happy to get some tax from them. But the Shi'is majority were not. The Shi'is majority were not, I mean, in the sense to be more accurate. The Shi'is, Kharijites, Zaydi, if I said Shia should be more accurate, the Zaydi, Ismaili, or even the more extremist Shias and Kharijites, they didn't recognize the authority in the Baghdad. And so government was more sensitive about them. The only exception, which is important, is Buyids. Buyids are Shia dynasty, and you'll see get the biggest control because they captured Baghdad. But the interesting thing is this: they find a middle way, the compromise way. And that you should have in mind. That's the ingenuity. There are Shia rulers ruling a large land, which is Sunni majority populated. They're tolerant. And also they conquered Baghdad, the seat of caliphate. Caliphate is under their control. They can bring caliphs and remove caliphs. I will show you they did that, but they didn't abolish caliphate. That's their smartness, and then we'll see that. So I want you to have this in mind, that Buyid's dynamic is a little bit different than all other ones. So we discussed about this matter a little bit more later on too. Now, so the topic today, really, although I go a little bit to the talk, maybe 1/3 of the talk already, but the main topic is Buyid dynasty, and it's important. And I try to push through. It's important for both Shia history generally, Shia history in Iran, and also even Iranianness, identity Iran, and what we have later on, and that. Much of the discussion today will be in Baghdad. So I wanted to go to Ray, but I kind of, the Baghdad was covered a lot because the next lecture is related to that. But you have to know some of you, or at least reflect some of the stuff happening in the Baghdad maybe happen in other cities too. So this is the type of historiography. Okay, we don't have exact evidence what is happening in Mashhad or Ray or whatever, but if we know something similar was happening in Isfahan and Shiraz, we can guess, okay, maybe Mashhad and Ray were similar, maybe not. But I think this case could be. So that's the main topic today. So the Buya dynasty was a Shia Iranian dynasty from Daylamite, that upper near Caspian origin, and the one which was not conquered by Muslim army, and they originally were Zoroastrian, and then many of them converted directly to Shia Zaydi Islam. Now, they ruled over Iraq and central Iran from 322 after Hijrah to 453. You're looking, the total dynasty length was 128 years, but there is a period in between which is important. I will discuss it. They were descended from so-called Samkai called Panah Khosrow, a Zoroastrian from Daylam. He had a son named Buya, who was a fisherman from Lahijan and later left Zoroastrianism and converted to Islam. So this father of the Buya dynasty, founder of dynasty, is the one converted to Islam. But the name of his children showed he converted to Shia Islam, most probably, certainly Zaydi Islam. Look, we said it, in that region, people were Zoroastrian, and Nasr al-Utrush, Hassan al-Utrush, Nasr al-Haq, the one Zaydi ruler, before capturing the government, start a mass campaign of conversion to Islam from Zoroastrian. So most probably this Buya person was converted under his hand, because we know his children served in that army of him. I'll show you the next slide. But and the names, remember there are three names, there are three brothers, Ali, Hassan, Ahmed, in the order which they made the Buya dynasty. Regarding the name, I wrote Buyids Bawayhid. Look, this Bawayhid is Arabs reading Buya transcription. They couldn't read easily Buya. That mistake has been left. You write something without Fatah Kasra, you read it. They read Bawayhid, and then even people and then Bawayhid, many different versions translated to English. We have again the same for the founder of, the one who organized or Arabic grammar, Sibuye, they read it, Arabs read Sibaway. They did the same thing. But let's put that aside. So I call it Buya because it's a Persian word and easier to say it. So as I said, these guys first raised to leadership, these three brothers. The father was a fisherman, converted to Islam. They rose to leadership, serving that Hassan al-Utrush, which is burial place is in Amul, Iran. And then his successor. Then later joined another Daylamites. These governments are detailed, called Mardavij and Bushmir Ziyari. We don't need to go through that. But what happened is that during some of the weaknesses of the Ziyari government, one of the brothers put the ruler of Karaj here in Tehran. Then this Ali, the older one, and then he decided to go down south. And then he started, for whatever reason, I go to Aswan, the detail, we don't need to go through that. He captured Shiraz. And made his capital. And that's the beginning of the Buya, 322 after Hijrah. Now look, 322 after Hijrah is 7 years before the start of Ghaibat al-Kubra. These connections are important. Ghaibat al-Kubra started, I'm going to explain it more later on too, started just few years that we get our first really large Shia dynasty, which controlling the heartland, because the Zaydi Alawis were the near Caspian shores, which was a remote place, hard to access. But these, you will see the next map, these guys are capturing the heartland of Iran, Iraq. So it's very different. And then have in mind, they converted to Imamiyah. I'm not sure when they converted to Imamiyah, but they converted to Imamiyah. Now, one other brother went toward to the Jebal, which is toward Zagros area, maybe toward Hamadan, Kermanshah, those area. And he also captured Ray and made that his capital. So he will be more important for us what happened in Ray, but I think today my story is more in Baghdad. Maybe I should have changed the title. But the youngest one was most ambitious one and most daring one. I think he needed a kingdom for himself. He straight went to Baghdad and he conquered Iraq and Baghdad and made his own capital. So still Caliph is there. Like we said, the same dynamic exists in Europe too. They have emperors, but the local kings really have the power. Emperor has some rights, but sometimes we're very poor. So this Ahmed captured Baghdad and then deposing the Abbasid Caliph al-Mustakfi billah and installing Muti-lillah. So you see they do that. Now this date is important. It's very important for the history of Islam, history of Shiism. 945 AD, which is 333 after Hijrah, is the beginning of as the capturing of Baghdad. And then this situation ends in 1055. 110 years later, in Qamari is a little bit longer. I think it's 447. Yeah, 3-4 years more. So 447 after Hijrah. Let's go with the 110 because it's a nicer number. This 110 years is called Shia century by Marshall Hudson from University of Chicago. Is perfect naming. This century is the most important century, not only in Shiism, but even Islamic history. This is the golden age of Islam, a golden age of not conquest, but science, culture, philosophy. This is the flourishing, all those knowledges. Baghdad is the cosmopolitan. It has the center of culture, economy, commerce, and in this century is the most populous city in the world too. I mean, Chinese usually have the whole history of the last 200 years have the most populous city, but Baghdad become. And under the tolerance, under the pragmatism of Buyids, we have a city which is unique. You have Zaidi sitting over there, Mu'tazila sitting over there, Shia Imamis over there, Dahriyunis are there, every philosophers or Christians are there, everybody writing. This is, and then all our big ulama, the famous ones, are there. You know, Khomeini moved over there, passed away over there, so he's the big one. Saduq wasn't there, the next big one, but the next 4 big ones are there. You Sheikh Mufid, Sayyid Razi, Sayyid Murtaza, collector of Sayyid Razi, collector of Nahjul Balagha, and then yes, Sheikh Tusi, all in Baghdad. So, and that's the time the Kufa gradually eclipses. And I go that Shias from Kufa moved to Baghdad. Earlier had been started because commerce, wealth, and then we'll see that a little bit more. So this 110 years is a Shia century and then the golden age of Islam, classical Islamic civilization. And I think the Buyids have an important role to do it. Now look to the map. This map tells us what kind of governments they have. You know, Emirat of Shiraz is more to the south, includes, and then Emirat of Ray includes more. Emirat Shiraz, I guess, no, it doesn't have Isfahan. Isfahan is Emirat of Ray, and then Emirat of Baghdad. Each of the 3 brothers pick up one of those. We are mostly concerned what happened in Baghdad. Now, as I said, this is the golden century. We'll go through that, but I want to discuss a little bit the timing too. So the conquest of Baghdad, the establishment of Buyid dynasty is 7 years before start of Ghaybat al-Kubra. But the conquest of Baghdad, 4 years, just 4 years. Okay, you can say it's coincidental. Yeah, you can say it. But I think it's not that coincidental. And I have my view that Ghaybat al-Kubra should start sometime. And I think maybe that was the right place to start. Look, I go a little bit direct to give my philosophy of Ghaybat is a little bit maybe different. Look, the difference of Ghaybat al-Sughra and Kubra is not that how many people can see Imam Zaman or not, or seeing it, or I mean, some say nobody. If somebody claims see Imam Zaman Ghaybat al-Kubra, they're lying. But I think there are examples which I think certain people see them. The difference is this. I go to a couple of minutes because that's I hope. Is important idea, and I think is related. The timing is related. Look, and from the 6th Imam, we have some organization which developed by the 5th and 6th Imam for collecting money, collecting wujuhat, khums, zakat, and this system makes an underground, not open network, which Imams have agents in different cities collecting money, but asking questions, and the questions sent to the Medina, or imams, in case imams were in Baghdad or Samarra, to Baghdad and Samarra, and then sent back. So this network was a semi-hidden or totally hidden network, and expanded, especially by the time of 10th Imam and or 9th Imam is a big organization. Now the details are known. Those representatives, Sofara, Novab, whatever we call. This organization still was existent in the time of Qaibat al-Sughra. But go fully underground. You know, the things are getting so hard, you cannot access the leader anymore, the Imam Zaman anymore. The whole system under the oppression, which is started by some of these hardline, like Mutawakkil rulers, Abbasid, goes completely underground. So look, you now hear about those. For example, there was Sinn Féin in Ireland. Now we know the memoirs of them, but there were sometimes you cannot find anybody you want from Sinn Féin. You know, Jerry Adams maybe know who Sinn Féin was, but now we hear the memoirs. So that's what we read now is the memoirs of that underground network. You have the same other networks which are were fighting that, but at the Ghaibat al-Sughra, the structure of the Shia community, social Shia community is there, and Imam is managing that, but has gone underground. So you cannot find Imam Verities, but you cannot find the leaders. But the Ghaibat al-Sughra starts, the whole structure is dismantled. Now the Shia community is left to itself. There is no guidance by Imam. I mean, we have to be careful. I think people want to get certainty. They don't like to be in this situation, but they always want to connect their maraj somehow to Imam Zaman. I will say, okay, whatever maraj says or this other person says is from Imam Zaman. But I don't think this matches with what the facts, what we know, and I think the philosophy of it. But the philosophy is this: I think Shia community should now compete with other communities without having explicit direct connection to heaven. I mean, if the Jewish ones, no prophet stuff to come to them. Christian ones do not have that type of connection. There are some other connection guidance. I know. This discussion not go too much Imam Zaman. I know it's become challenging. I know, like his son behind the clouds, so we get benefits. But nobody can go send there. I have this question about cloning. Imam Zaman, can you answer me? Cloning is halal or haram? Okay. That should be done by the ulama, and there is some uncertainty here, and that's okay. That was planned. That Shia community, in a fair competition with all other ummas, had to stand on its feet, is now 18 years old, should go out and get a living and go to the outer world, not go out of the home. That's exactly happened. But to be doing this, you should do it at the right time. Prepare people. And I also will see the whole Ghaibat al-Sughra help the pressure goes away from Imami Shia. Because even was less pressure on them before, because they were not like Zaydis or Khawarij uprising any minute they can. But still, the government start to get suspicious about them. Oh, these guys are not just praying; they're very influential, and then there are many Alawites still uprise, maybe listening to their imams, not listening to their imams. There Shia imam. I mean, the descendants of imams left. There are many uprisings. Those 100 years ending up to Ghaibat al-Sughra. But the point is that, so that's the imams were taken a house arrest, put in a house arrest in Samarra, effective the last two imams. The seventh imam was in prison in Baghdad, so the governments don't want them to be far away. Medina, bring them close to have an eye on them. All those true, but by Ghaibat al-Sughra, the whole pressure goes away because there's no lead. At least for them, there's no leader. They cannot find the leader. So let these guys be for themselves, and other things they should concern. Now, but the Imam trained in a hidden organization, prepared the people for the time he wasn't there. But the moment he completely dismantled, it was just a few years after the first Shia dynasty, which is ruling this area. I mean, they didn't capture Baghdad till a few years later, but they start to get the kingdom, at least in Ray and Shiraz. And then 4 years after Ghaibat al-Kubra started, they captured Baghdad. So the Shia dynasty captured Baghdad. So if honestly, if you want to plan with a rational plan to start Ghaibat al-Kubra, is a good time, because that community now can flourish. I mean, you cannot kick your son out of the house, 18 years old, without having any education, any money, and work. I mean, you don't want to freeze outside. But if they have some degree, some university to go, okay, there's some jobs, it is a good time. So this is the digression I had, but I think it's good. Now, it's not only Buyids this get the power. Actually, it's when things are going good, things going good. So kind of simultaneously, 4, 5, or 6. I mean, depending how you count, Shia governments came. First, the Ismailis in Misr get Egypt get the control, and Iraq and Iran, Al Buya. In Syria and Halab, and Halab become a good center, Shia center. That's a surprise. And even Damascus, the one which is capital of Umayyads now changed. This Hamdanis were Shia. Farabi was in their court. So Farabi, the famous philosopher, was there. And then Zaydi government, the ancestor of these Husis in Yemen. So 4 government. And then there is one Garmatians, which are an offshoot of Ismailis. They get control of Bahrain, east of Arabia, the Ahsa area, and these guys are the ones that are problematic. They're not Shia. They're even and then every bad name Sunnis give to Shias are mostly from calling these guys. They're even not ISIS, because ISIS at least have some way is Salafi Sunni. But these guys were very unique for themselves. They're really I don't cannot consider Muslim, but anyway. And then there is also Dawlat al-Ashraf. These Ashraf are descendants of Prophet, which get control of Mecca, which till recently, which Wahhabis get control of Arabia, Hijaz. They were ruling in Mecca and Medina. So always, so you see, this 4th century, everything is getting good. So look, this is the map actually. So although the Khorasan thing is a little bit different, but you have the Buyid, you have Hamdanid, you have Fatimids, you have Armatis, you have Zaydis in Yemen, which unfortunately my map is not big. But look, still in Khorasan, which is not a small area, you have Samanids, Safarids. These are Sunni Iranians, and then gradually Seljuks start to come out, and Ghaznavids. So that is 400 years later. That's the end of the Buyids. Now, these guys are historically have been given names. Just you heard them by the honors. For us, Ahmad is the most important one, actually for ones that Dawla, but later on, Hassan, which is the ruler of Ray Rukn Dawla, just to heard about it. But this other thing is important too. So things are not that straight. Because Buyids were not Arab, so they cannot claim lineage from Quraysh or Prophet or Bani Hashim. Many of these Persian dynasties start to claim lineage from old Persian kings. So they start to claim our lineage goes to Bahram, the 15th king of Sasani Empire. And even as they more established, the next generation start to use the title Shah and Shah for themselves. So for this idea of the regeneration of Persian culture, this could be important. This is not a line I'm interested much in, but okay, you have to know. I mean, part of it is, you can see, is because of they work with the Ziyaris. Ziyaris mainly when Zoroastrian from Daylaman. I mean, maybe some convert to Islam. Some of them, they really maybe want to topple the Abbasid Caliphate and bringing back a Zoroastrian government. And that could be what the Ziyar, Mardavich and Wushmir tried and show the weakness of the Caliphate in Baghdad, that the Ahmad Buya really get, because they were serving in their army, get the weakness, and they did the job. So the idea of capturing Baghdad was with the Ziyaris, which this Buya service them. Okay, this is another line. You see, things can become complicated, and that could be the idea that some people think Shiism is someone connected to the being Persian, which is not. But okay, for many of those people, maybe at that time, this association could have been. Is later, is not as Safavid, because usually the Western scholarship associates Shia. But so this needs more investigation. It's not time. Okay, now look, the discussion which I want to go maybe takes 11, 10, and 15 minutes. not more, is about the religion of the Buyids. I mean, whether this discussion was a lot, whether there was Zaidi and Imami. That's not very important for me. But during that, you would see what they have done for the religious culture, environment, especially in Baghdad, and then you can extrapolate to other cities. And that's interesting. So many people put these instances which I bring as an argument they were Imamis. Look, let's put it. I believe they were initially Zaydis. At some stage, they switched to Imamis. So that's true. They definitely are Shia, no discussion. When they switch, I don't know. When they captured Ray, Shiraz, Baghdad, or earlier. The other possibility is there. It could be earlier too, but some scholars rejected that. Here, first, I put the one which Mojan Moment put it as on Wikipedia, and similar to Matnon. But you have to know Mojan Moment, Mujan is it? Mojan Moment, I think is, I'm not sure, is a Kurdish name, whatever. He's Baha'i. So, but he's a scholar. He has one of, that's unfortunate, one of the best, still the books comprehensive book. Maybe the first one came and used in undergraduate courses in all these American universities was written by him. So I mean that's maybe our fault. We don't have that level book, and still for many Shia classes, introductory Shia classes, his book is good. It's decent size, have everything in it, 400 pages. So anyway, so the idea was that, which I said it before, and I can show it in a Farsi slide too. For them. For the Buyids, if they claim they're Zaidi, because they're not from Sadat, Bani Hashim, they cannot be Imam. But if we go to Imam, and also they cannot be Imam, and they cannot tolerate much Caliphate of Baghdad. Remember, Zaydis were politically more radical, religiously more moderate. Imamis were more religiously less moderate. They didn't accept the two caliphs, but politically they don't uprise immediately. And now the Imam was either in Ghaybat al-Kubra, I mean, just 322, 7 years before ending of Ghaybat al-Sughra, or after they captured Baghdad, already was Ghaybat al-Kubra. So there is no question the relationship of anybody to Imam is the same. So this may be one of the benefits of the Imams is not there. So get them the free hand. They control Baghdad. They have the power. They be Shi'i. And this is a very logical, secular argument. But there could be the religious truth matter too. And then many of the traditional scholars want to prove they are Imami. I mean, they are Imami. When they become Imami, we don't know. So I don't think it's a big thing. And then they were, look, the other thing is this. It is their tolerance, their pragmatism. Look, the Buyids, that's the last two paragraph. The Buyids rarely attempted to enforce a particular religious view upon their subjects. Look, this is our problem. This is a matter of discussion today, on their subjects, except in matters would be politically expedient. They were smart. If it is needed, they're politically, their power, national interest, okay, maybe they go that line. They keep the Sunni Abbasid Caliphate as a nominal figure, legitimizing all the Sunnism, stuff like that, but deprived it as from all secular power. So they can control the power, okay, let him have the religious authority. And then the other thing they did, this is an example, I just heard this today, so this needs more investigation, but this policy was done by Ottomans and some Safavids too. In addition, for avoiding tensions between Shia and Sunnis, because they were Shias, everybody know they're Shias, and then they ruled majority Sunnis. Sometimes they appointed Christians to high offices. I don't necessarily fond of this policy, but this may be part of their pragmatism. I'm not sure how much it is. This must be investigated more. Now, again, this Farsi slide, sorry, I didn't find time to translate or put it down, is the argument why they may have switched from Zaydi to Shiism basis on that kind of secular power government. So that latter sentence, because I want to save time, I just read that. Neither Khawarij, no Shia and Zaydi, neither Khawarij, no Zaydis, no Fatimids could handle with the independent caliph in Baghdad, because this doesn't. They were the imam. They couldn't get the caliph. But because for Shia Imam was in Ghaiba, now then you can deal with the secular rulers. So that balance is important. And that's exactly the right timing. And Ghaybat al-Sughra, Ghaybat al-Kubra. Honestly, by the start of Ghaybat al-Kubra, she start to flourish. But the real peak of the momentum of flourishment start with Ghaybat al-Kubra. Okay, and then he gives an example. People like Ali Buyids, Ali Farad, Ali Bastam could work in the Abbasid administration and no problem. There are arguments, a lot of arguments. There are many scholars, not necessarily traditional. Even Arbery and Fry say, okay, the Buyids were from the initially Shia Imami. Okay, that there are many, these are big scholars, but I think they're more older generation. Maybe they don't have all the evidence, but they are big scholars. Fry, the one want to bury him in Isfahan, and people didn't let him. So past few years ago, and then even the German one, Spohler, which is a big one, all early 19th, 20th century. Again, they say no, they were Imami from the beginning. I'm not against it, but this comment, Dr. Kamal Shavi says, okay, there was Zaidi, then become Imami, and then, but the one I want to put it here is that, for example, Mu'azz al-Dawla put its scholar which he rujuu to for fiqh as Imamiyeh, or Rukn al-Dawla had a very good relationship to Sadu. So these are other examples people want to get Imami. And then two of the things is important regarding them, and we discussed it. They initiated the ceremonies for 10th of Muharram Ashura, and also, so this is the Azah, and then the ceremonies for, this is the one I want to go, the social cultural change they produced. I don't care whether now necessarily when they changed to Shia Imam. Examples I give you is for that, but ulama use this to argue they were Shia Imami and so on. Okay, also Eid al-Ghadir, this is important. It seems the emphasis on Eid al-Ghadir is a really Shia Imami one. Zaydis gradually start to downplay that, because if Qadir is really there, you cannot say those two first caliphs okay, it wasn't clear. They did a mistake, good intentions. You know what I mean? If the meaning of Qadir is what she understood, which it is clear. I mean, it's impossible to understand Vali otherly. Even I show you one of the other talks Muawiyah used in one of his injunctions, this exactly the same word in this hadith, Sunni hadith, but the same meaning. Wali means political authority. He says, I have walaya on you, listen to me. I wouldn't listen. You should listen to me. I don't listen to you. You're my subordinate. But that's another story. But it says, this is, they pushed it. Buyids pushed two things. Two are the important features of Shia: celebration of Eid al-Ghadir and also the issues of the ceremony of the Ashura. I mean, they did other things. For example, when they capture Kerman, they start to curse Muawiyah. Maybe Kerman at that time was more Sunni city. Those stuff, I don't want to go through that. The only thing I want to say, and I know we are a little bit above time, but I think I'm gonna finish it by 10. First, you have to say, it wasn't that Baghdad didn't have any Shia presence. I don't want you to get that that's a big misunderstanding. That Shiism in Baghdad spread because of the Buyids. But Buyids were very important. Actually, we have strong Imami Shia presence because it's the capital. People start to move, and then because Imam Musa Kazim was in prison over there and martyred and buried in the suburb of Baghdad, in the Masjid al-Kazimiyya. So we have had Shia presence, and then we have after that the 9th Imam also buried and come and leave and buried the same place. So gradually Shias from Kufa and other places start to live in Baghdad. You know, Baghdad is more prosperous capital, has more commerce, wealth, knowledge, everything is reasonable to live in Baghdad. So the Shia communities start to grow. Actually, there were two neighborhoods, which you can see in the map. The green zone, which Americans have, is the other side of the river. Karkh, which is the Shia neighborhood, is the other side of the river. So the green zone is east, the Karkh is, there are two neighborhoods which Shias were famous and still is there. But now, you know, the city is grown, that Karkh is still like downtown, but is that. So look, here I go very fast. Look, Buyids couldn't control Baghdad if there wasn't Shia presence. And there were some tensions before Buyids coming. For example, there is a famous mosque, still is there in 313, that's not 1000, 313, 313. Burasa, Masjid Burasa in Kerch. And then Shia scholars teach over there, and this produced tensions. Hanbalis were not happy. Muqtada Abbasi commanded one time to destroy that. Then Ibn Jawzi, very famous Sunni scholar, says just 2 years before Buyids captured Baghdad, 2 years after the start of Baybat al-Kubra, he said, oh, Baghdad is full of Rawafis. Rawafis, when they say, means Imami Shias, because they don't accept the first two caliphs. And then caliphs, they go to the Abbasid caliph, and caliph says, okay, if anybody says bad thing about the first two caliphs, his blood on his own hand. You know, if they killed him, I'm not going to follow up for that, you know, with the murderer. So be careful, don't say that. I mean, it means that you have to, if you say that, maybe something bad happens to that and the police will not follow on it or so on. And then another Shia scholars clearly teaches at this Masjid al-Burasa in Baghdad. These are just 1 year before the Buyids captured the city. But overall, still, if the Baghdad, maybe the percentage was higher, but overall in the whole lands, Buyid controlled, the majority were not Shia. And that pragmatism of them was needed to rule the people. They start to promote Shia ideas. Still, governments can put their billboards, can put the inscriptions, their advertisement. So they start to add some lands. Well, one of them, for example, in many masajid, Muazzad Dawla order it. For example, land in Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. Look, this issue of land of lands in Ziyarat al-Ashura, people ask. These are old. I mean, older than this. But look, he wrote an inscription to put the mosque, land man ghasb Fatima raziyallahu anha fadaka. Land those who take fadak from Hazrat Fatima. And land, and the second one, mana, this is a little going farther. And mana and yatfan al-Hasan and the qabr jaddi. Land the one, which is Aisha, who did not allow Imam Hassan buried near his grandfather. I mean, you may say, this is at least the what is done as politics. Good, bad, right? I'm not defending it. Or then add two sentences, which is interesting. But Nafaya Abazar al-Ghafari, land the one who send Abu Zar away to banish about Abu Zar, which is Osman. So you see, they're landing everybody. And then man akhraja Abbas min al-shura. This one I never heard it before, but this is the sentence they put. Abbas did get happy too. So it's claiming Abbas should have been the shura, which Imam Ali was in it. And if Abbas was the 7%, I'm not sure he was alive at that time, then the votes will be changed. You know, this is a good point. Omar Shura is not put over that you know certainly Osman comes out. Imam Ali said it. There are 6 people, 3-3 divided, and veto was to the son-in-law of Osman. So know who will come out. Veto when it's tied 3-3. But the question is, why did if Abbas was alive, the father of Abbas, the Abbas uncle of Prophet, why he was as old as the one which is the kind of the sheikh of the community, why he wasn't in that shura? Because totally the votes will switch this way. Imam Ali get 4-3 and win it. Like this situation we have the Supreme Court. But Ali Jafarian says, okay, look, this slogan shows the Buyids are Imami Shi, they're not Zaidi. But I agree that sometimes they convert to Imami Shiism, and I don't. My point is that to show what the environment does. I mean, these other ones are important, so I think we hear about our Shura program, so let's go through that. The most important thing maybe this Buyids established is open, large-scale implementation of this Ashura ceremony. They started at 352. So they captured the city at 333. So they waited a while and they started to, and then it says bazaars were closed. I'm not sure about that comment about women, maybe it was the women quarter, and but it means a big ceremony was happening over there. So some of the stuff we have now most probably started from then, not necessarily from Safavi. Look, I'm doing history. We need to have some judgment that if you read something, Telegram, other stuff, at least we can see is right or not, because now we're getting much of information, fake news, true news. We have to be able to decide between them. Okay. They say that he must consulted with Shia scholars to establish this.
And then over all these shows, the two ceremonies, Qadir and Ashura, was held very strongly. But these ceremonies produce tensions. You have to anticipate, So if Shias openly start to celebrate Qadir or have the procession for Ashura, can produce tension. So then you can see the example, and this example is very interesting. The most important Shia quarter in Baghdad, as I said, was Karkh Baghdad and Mahallet Babuta. And then occasionally, even as see previous examples, the more hardline Sunnis attacked there and then burned some parts of it. And we know they burned also libraries. And then some Iranians were living over there. I don't want to go through that. But one interesting thing is this. One reaction, this is a very sociologically interesting. Look, nowadays it's near Christmas time. Now, I think we are still in Hanukkah. Hanukkah wasn't such a big deal. I don't think it was there, nobody celebrated. But in the last 50 years, Hanukkah is pushed up that the Jewish families in the United States have something besides parallel to Christmas. So Hanukkah now is a bigger deal. Many of these, even Christmas. Christians 150 years ago Christmas was an important day. The birthday of Jesus wasn't important. What was Easter was the religious ceremony and stuff before that. Is last 150 years, this Christmas has become celebrating the birthday. The same way, for example, Sunnis do not celebrate the birthday of Prophet, Wahhabis do not celebrate the birthday of Prophet Muhammad, the others there, but some cultures, for example, Egypt, they do. So that's one other thing. If you look, it's this, even maybe Charles Dickens' book Christmas Carol has some hand in it. Honestly, this Christmas celebration wasn't a big deal. They know the day, but it wasn't huge. But Easter was. Now, one of the things that people do, you bring another celebration, putting in front of it. So if Hanukkah come in front of Christmas, it seems the Sunnis at Baghdad, this is very interesting for me, initially want to do something in front of Qadir and Ashura. So they celebrate a day of the cave, the 26th of Zihajjah. Day of cave is referring to Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr going to the cave, so he was the second of the two. The verse in the Quran, which the verse actually is critical, or at least show the guy was scared. But I'm not going through that. So they said, if you have Qadir as a designation, we have that day in the cave, and then they called the Hijrah was 26th of Zihajjah. The other one, in front of Ashura, they didn't go that the one now Sunni Salafis do. Look, Salafis is going before even Abbasi. Some of these are going to Osmanid Umayyads. Look, getting fasting, that is the Eid, is absolutely horrendous. So they wouldn't do that. But they said, okay, instead of going to that line of this is Eid, or although they claim eating not because of Ashura, because other stuff happened before it, they claim other prophets. But then they have a celebration for Mas'ab ibn Zubair. And Mas'ab ibn Zubair, was Zubairites. And remember, this Sunnism we have is essentially developed by Zubayris. In front of Umayyads, I have a talk, and then Shiism of Kufa, you have Zubayri. You have the two line of Sunnism, which Umar, Abu Bakr, Aisha was the Zubayri aristocracy of Mecca and Quraysh, and then also the Damascus Umayyads. And then after the event of Ashura, after the switch from Sufyanids to Marwanids, you see, okay, Marwanis find a compromise. So the Zubairis were absorbed to the Marwanis, and we have the new Sunnah. So they want to do something in 18 of Muharram. Instead of 10th of Muharram, 18 of Muharram, instead of 18 of Ziyajah, 26th of Ziyajah, the same you have Hanukkah and Christmas. And then they find somewhere and go over there to, for example, morning. But, these didn't stay. But the other thing is very interesting. Shabih Sazi, these are very interesting. Ta'ziyah, Shabih Sazi, the acting. And then now we see how the fiqh Sunni impossible to do that. Shia, we also do dress men as women. They put a woman and they call it Aisha, and they call somebody Talha, call somebody Zubair, and then they enact it like that. So you see, because they don't have the political power to suppress the Shia ceremony, they bring another one. Now they're effectively the minority, at least they don't have the power. So they want to have two in front of the Shias. This is interesting. This tactics is used. I'm saying Hanukkah exactly is coming because of that. Now, just I think is one slide is left, two slides. Look, these tensions are the story in Baghdad between Shia and Sunni are partially the story of the Buyids rules. And then next time we have to, but it's not the main current. It happens occasionally. The main current is cooperation. You know, when Sheikh Mufid passed away, 100,000 people participate in his burial, many Sunni ulama stuff. But, you know, they're listed. You know, even some year Sheikh Mufid has to go out of the Baghdad, then he came back again, and people wrote it. You know, the Buyids were ruling Baghdad till 447. And then the last one, 448, is important because by 447, Toghrul, a Seljuk ruler, captured Baghdad. And that ended the Shia century, the golden century, because they're not only Shiism was done, but the whole science tolerance gone. Because the very hardliner Sunnis, they don't have time for Mu'tazilah, all this philosophy stuff. They were Turkish military men mainly from Central Asia, stuff like that. So what was important? Because they ransacked and burned the Sheikh Tusi's library and house. And unfortunately, many books lost. And as a result, he has to escape Baghdad and decided to go where? He decided to go Najaf. And that's the starting year of the start of Hosef Najaf. We are close in the 1,000-year anniversary if we go Qamari years. So that's when he moved to Najaf. He established Hosef Najaf. The idea is that for 1,000 years, last 1,000 years, we have continuously Hosef over there. And as I said, the decline of Buyids happens is this. Gradually, the three kingdom they have was lost. The first one was lost in 420, was in Ray. The second one was lost, 447 was in Baghdad. And then a few years later, 453, the third one in Shiraz is lost because gradually now the new force, the new tribal nomadic groups of Turkic origin from Central Asia start to come in, and the Ghaznavid and Seljuqid are the next story. And by coming of the Seljuqis, Shia, not only the 100 years of golden age and the Shia century go away, Shia again start become persecuted. And I think I'm not going to go further than that. Next lecture, which will be the last lecture, I want to talk about the scholars, scholarly activity in Baghdad and Ray and Qom under connection. So as usual, I will stop with this salawat al-khasa Imam Riza alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Ali ibn al-Musarriza al-Murtaza al-Imam al-Taqiyan النقي بحجتك على من فوق عرش ومن تحت الثرى الصديق الشهيد صلاة كثيرة تامة زاكية متواصلة متواترة مترادفة كأفضل ما صليت على أحد من أوليائك. Yeah, please recite the salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Dr. Qudus, thank you very much for your in detail lecture. I would say this episode was about the Alibuya. The next episode, if we have a preview, it's going to be all the scholars in many cities that you reviewed. So let me ask Dr. Hadavi. Last time we didn't get to answer his question. Please unmute yourself and ask your question, Dr. Hadavi. And we are good to stop recording, I think. So it's better not to record the Q&A session.